On this episode of Delivering Marketing Joy, I talk with Stan Phelps, who talks about goldfish and how little things in your business make a big difference. Hey there, and welcome to another edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hasseman, and I'm very excited today to have another repeat guest. Now, Stan Phelps is joining me. Stan Phelps is an experienced architect, love that title. He's a Forbes contributor, a TEDx speaker, IBM futurist, and 4-time author. He's a rock star. Stan, thanks so much for joining me, man.
Thanks for having me, Kirby.
Cool, man. Well, hey, in your book, Purple Goldfish, which I read last year, it mentions that little something extra to delight customers. I just love that concept, love the book. Why do you think that concept is still so important for companies today?
Well, I think differentiation, first of all, Kirby, is going to become more important than ever. And I think businesses now have to really concentrate and figure out ways they can go beyond just the transaction to develop that relationship. And so in Purple Goldfish, I talk about a concept called GLUE, which is an acronym for giving little unexpected extras. And so the idea of how do you just do a little bit more than what's expected? And if you do that little more than what's expected, one, you start to stand out. But two, and this is more important, you start to give your customers a reason to talk about you, to tweet about you, to share on Facebook about you. And I think that's where I think it's really important going forward.
Now, that's totally, it reminds me of something I saw Seth Godin in Las Vegas recently, and he said, if you want to be remarkable, you have to do something that people remark about, right? That's right. The key, right? And so I that's great.
And so we call it's called Purple Goldfish, and part of that purple is an ode to Seth. And I'm sure you're probably familiar with the concept of a purple cow, which is this idea that your product in itself needs to be remarkable. I think the evolution of that is the experience that you provide needs to be remarkable. And I think it's the little things. It's not a cow.
Yeah.
I think in many ways it's a goldfish, and the goldfish represents something that's truly small that helps people stand out. In fact, the goldfish was inspired by Kimpton hotels. And if you've ever stayed at a Kimpton property, for a bunch of them, I mean, they absolutely get the idea of doing the little extra. Okay. Just last week, I'm in D.C., and they have a program called Raid the Minibar. So if you're a member of their loyalty program, Kirby, they give you $10 that you can either use with the mini bar, or a lot of them actually have a hotel bar. They give you a $10 credit for the bar.
Well, that's awesome.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
But this is my favorite. One of the things that they do, Kirby, is that if you're staying there, maybe you're getting a little lonely, some of the Kimpton properties will give you a pet goldfish for your stay.
Wow.
Yeah. So I love that as a little thing that just is so signature about their business that you couldn't help but take pictures of and tell people about, right?
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. I just love that, and I do recommend the book for sure. And it kind of leads nicely into my next question, which is, you have said, I've seen in the past, that customer expectations are sort of rising faster than ever too. And it leads me to ask, what can companies do to make sure they succeed in the long term?
Well, no doubt. I mean, the research bears it out that expectations are rising all the time. In fact, IBM came out with a study, and that it said that 80% of customers today expect companies to know them and to be able to personalize the experience that they provide to them. That's just today. That's 4 out of 5 people. And in my latest book, which is called The Blue Goldfish, which is all about technology, data, and analytics, It's all about how do you understand your customers' needs? How do you understand those insights that you can turn into actions? Because here's the biggest myth, Kirby. No one ever meets the expectations of a customer.
That's a great point.
You either exceed them or you fall short. And it's a story I talk about in The Purple Goldfish of a personal story I had about encountering somebody who told me that there's no such thing as being on time. You're either early or you're late. And so I think in today's world, the expectations continue to rise literally on almost a daily basis, because I call it the Amazon effect. We're not comparing what it's like to go to another restaurant or to what it was like when you went into this store. We're literally comparing it to the last experience we had with folks like Amazon or Netflix or Uber or Airbnb.
Yeah. No.
And so I think the bar is raising. And I think at the end of the day, and this is what I touched on in my latest book, you asked about how can companies tap into this. I think we absolutely have to start thinking about how do we use technology, how do we use the data that we have, how do we get analytical so we can personalize the experience that we provide to our customers.
Well, yeah, I think that makes total sense, and I think that people still buy from people they like, know, and trust. And so I think what you're saying is that data, you can use that to develop a better relationship. Am I right on that?
Right. And I'm also talking about little data.
Okay.
We get caught up in this idea of big data.
Yeah.
And big data is great because big data can tell you, where the trends are.
Right.
But little data is the actual stuff that you know about the customers that you deal with that allows you, if you're tapped in, to be able to personalize that experience. And so let me give you an example. One of my favorite ones from the book is about an Australian bank. And this Australian bank happens to be the fourth largest one in Australia and New Zealand. It's called Westpac.
Okay.
And so Westpac, Kirby, has about 10 million customers or so.
Okay.
Well, if you can imagine this from being a bank, they are generating over 100 million offline and online transactions each month. This amazing amount of data. What they've been able to do, this is staggering, they've been able to use that data and they understand the life cycle of all of their customers. So based upon where you are at different life stages and being a customer, you tend to you have different needs, you'll tend to buy different financial products. And so what they've been able to do is plot for about 2/3 of their customer the first year. They were able to plot based on the life stage of where that customer was, based on what they knew about the 10 million, that customer would probably want this product next.
Wow.
And they created a standing next best offer that they put in the system against that customer. Now, this is clever. What they did was they waited till that customer walked into a bank branch where they picked up the phone to talk to someone in customer service. And at the end of that transaction, the teller or the customer service representative said, "Hey, we have something we think that you might be interested in," and they presented the offer to that customer.
Wow.
Now, Kirby, you come from a strong marketing background. If you made the same offer to all of your customers of Hasseman Marketing Group, what percentage conversion rate do you think would be amazing?
Almost like an upsell. I mean, 1/3, 1/20.
Right. So for most direct marketing type of stuff, like if you were a bank and you had a credit card,
Okay.
and you sent it out to everyone, if you got like a 3% conversion rate,
right,
you would be like, that's stupendous. But you know what you've done? You've annoyed probably 97% of the other people.
Yeah.
Well, this is what they found, Kirby. Because they were personalizing that offer, they were converting over 40%
Wow.
of those customers.
So it's an Uber targeted sort of upsell next sell.
Yeah, it's like the bank is understanding who I am as a person,
right,
and what my needs are, and because it's very focused and targeted on that, that's why they were literally converting. Now, think about it. That teller or that customer service representative, they're not exactly salespeople, right? So that's the power, I think, going forward. Business has always been personal.
Mm-hmm.
You think about it, you only have to go back 130 years ago, where everything we consumed, we physically knew the person that made it.
Yeah.
And what happened? What happened if in the village or town that you lived in, Kirby, what happened if a retailer or someone that sold you something, if they wronged you, what would happen?
You would tell everyone, and it would have a huge impact.
Right. And so you would have to leave town, or you'd have to make it right.
Right.
And so, a friend of mine, Chris Malone, talks about this in a book called The Human Brand, which is an amazing book if you haven't picked it up.
Okay.
But he talks about that little village or town mentality is now coming back. Because now somebody has that bad experience. Not only do they tell a few other people in the town, but they have literally the ability to tell millions.
Yeah. Yeah,
and they could pull out a video camera and and take a photo, and literally within seconds,
wow,
reach millions of people.
Yeah, and I actually love that, because I have heard that as well, where it's actually the internet's making it more global, but yet almost like a small town again. And so yeah, that makes total sense to me. Well, hey, go ahead.
Part of what I like about doing the little extra is that sometimes you look at it, it's like, instead of just meeting and having this a fight to be equal, if you can do just a little bit more, it puts a little bit of a credit in the bank for you, right? Because everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
In fact, it's how you handle those mistakes that can make the greatest difference. But someone's going to give you a little bit of benefit of the doubt if you've always done a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure just in the last week, Jay Baer came out with a great book called Hug Your Haters.
Yeah.
And so I really think that people are going to start to really focus in on how do they handle mistakes, how do they deal with people on social that are calling them out.
Yeah. No, it's awesome topic. And well, Stan, you've answered my questions. Always give everybody an opportunity to ask me one question, so I'll let you fire away if that's okay.
So here's my question for you. I had a chance last week to be in an event with a common friend of ours, Danny Rosen, who runs Brand Fuel Promotions, and he absolutely knocked it out of the park. As part of his trade show display at this event, he had a swag lottery machine, what he's calling the only one in the world. And it was an amazing thing. It looked like kind of a phone booth. You would come up and put your ticket into the machine, pull a handle, and out of this little thing in the bottom, you would get a really cool piece of swag, a promotional item. And it was like the hit of the show. So I'm going to ask you deal with clients all the time that are looking to do promotional products at trade shows. What's the one example that stands out that you've really seen that a company's really hit a home run with?
So you mean a specific product, a specific theme?
Yeah, maybe an experience that they provided where the product was part of the thing that drove traffic, or...
Yeah, there's several, as you might expect, but I think one of the ones that really caught my eye, and as you know, Danny's awesome, and we are sort of in the business of helping people do trade shows. But one that kind of spoke to me, and it was consistent with their brand, and they actually did bottle openers. And so that was what they sold. And so they actually created a beach-themed trade show booth. They did mailers in advance with, kind of Jimmy Buffett stuff. And that when you came to their area, their trade show booth, there was sand. There was a beach. They were in Hawaiian shorts, barefoot, tank tops. They had a bar, and they were actually serving beer from the bar, and they had music playing, the whole 9 yards. And so that one always sticks in my head. And one of the things I say about that is they committed to the theme, right? And so it wasn't just about whatever piece of promotional thing, but they built a whole thing around that. I was like, I got to go see they built a theme. I want to go see it. And then they delivered. And so it wasn't just about the piece. It was about the pre-promotion. It was about the event itself. And so that's one of my favorites that I've seen, I think.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's fun. They did that little something extra with the sand, right? Because that was pretty cool. Well, hey, man, I really appreciate you taking the time. Anybody who is on here, I would definitely recommend you looking for the purple goldfish. And Stan, of course, has the new one coming out. That's the blue goldfish. And there are 4 of them, all the goldfish series. They're good stuff. So I highly recommend them. And Stan, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up another edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching, but wait! Can you do me a favor? Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done it already. The way to do it's right over here. And hey, if you want to watch the last episode, check that out over here. Again, before you leave, subscribe!